3, in which Max and Grammy wondered what happened and what to do about it. As soon as he was safely out of sight around 2 corners, Max stopped. He could go no farther. He put his leaden feet on the ground and collapsed over the handlebars. The carpet bag thumped onto the ground. Max felt as if a wagon had whammed into him, a wagon loaded with heavy stones, a wagon pulled by huge hooved Clydesdale horses, thundering along so fast they didn't even swerve for the boy on a bicycle as they whammed into him. He felt flattened and stunned and frightened. He made himself breathe deeply, the old cure for stage fright. Once, twice, 3 times. Then he took 3 more slow, deep breaths, just to hear the echo of his father's voice in his head. 1, 2, deep breaths, Max. Deep. Good. 3. Good. Then a cart did rattle up behind him, its wooden wheels loud on the cobblestones. "Hey, kid, out of the road!" a man's voice bellowed. A heavy boot kicked the carpet bag aside, and the carter pushed by, muttering angrily. As if these streets weren't narrow enough. These kids think they own the world. There were no sidewalks in the old city, so Max had to pick up his carpet bag, pull his bicycle into the doorway, and huddle there. He couldn't take it in what had happened. He felt as if he were floating in the sky with no moon and no stars, just black, airless space. He felt hollow as space, empty, frightened. He took 3 more slow, deep breaths, and the idea came to him. That note made absolutely no sense, made so little sense that it had, somehow, to make sense that it made no sense. Grammy, he thought. The fact of her, like a candle in the darkness. Maybe she knew something. Because on fine days, Grammy took her lunch out into the garden behind the library. That was where Max found her. He was glad she was alone. She took one look at his face and knew. They've gone. Max dragged words up from deep in his stomach. Without me. He thrust the note at her. The boat had already sailed, and there wasn't any boat with that name anyway. He sank beside her onto the wooden bench. Someone was lying all along. Grammy dropped the uneaten half of her sandwich onto her lap and read the note. The bench was under a magnolia tree, and the air was sweetened by the perfume of its blossoms, but neither of them noticed that. After Grammy read the note, she covered her face with her hands, wrinkling the paper against her nose and mouth. Max's own hands were fists on his thighs. Do you think they knew? Eventually, Grammy uncovered her face. What has he gotten her into now? She demanded. What do they expect you to do? Be independent, Max told her glumly. Eat the rest of the sandwich, please. I seem to have lost my appetite. Max shook his head. He wasn't hungry. He thought, in fact, that he might never be hungry again. They sat on the bench for a long time, not speaking, not looking at one another, each thinking unhappy, anxious thoughts. You'll live with me, of course, Grammy said thoughtfully. But what was that invitation about? The clock tower rang 12 slow notes. What do you mean there was no boat? She asked. If they've gone off, there had to be a boat. Max answered. I was on time. Grammy shook her head, as if to clear her thoughts, and took off her glasses to rub at her eyes. Max waited. Grammy was the steady person in his life, the one who almost never got upset or excited. And that note, Grammy grumbled. Take your things to my house, and after that you should go down to the docks again and find out everything you can, she decided. Maybe something will make sense out of this latest imbroglio of your father's. His mother had been just as eager, Max thought, but he didn't say this to his grandmother. He felt incapable of having a single opinion of his own, and he didn't want to have to make decisions. So he got up from the bench and went to do as he'd been told. Be back in time for supper, Grammy called off after him.